What's up? I'm Jenny Matrano, and this is my Liberation Diary. In this video, I'm going to be processing the topic of relationships, specifically liberation in relationships and new partner roles. So more so talking about romantic relationships, but this could probably apply to friendships and the gray areas as well. There are a couple of questions that I actually want to start off with because I've noticed that my videos have been very windy and very processy, which that's not inherently a bad thing, especially for a diary entry, but it would be different if it was just my actual diary. This is a public facing video that's meant to spark conversation in the collective. So I want to make sure that it's easy to understand and easy to listen to, that you know kind of where I'm going, so you could follow my thought process and go on the journey with me. And then hopefully you can reflect on those same questions and come to your own conclusions and have your own thoughts to add. Another thing I just want to say, I'm a little bit sick still. So I apologize if my voice sounds very congested, because sometimes that annoys me. So I would get it if that annoys you. And in that case, don't listen. I might also randomly sneeze. Now that we got that out of the way, the 4 questions I'm going to be focusing on for this video. 1. Is 50-50 on all work, bills, and house duties really fair in a partnership? 2. Is there always a masculine and feminine energy in a relationship? And if so, how does that affect the dynamic? 3. How does having one partner financially providing all survival needs, aka food, shelter, and clothing, ultimately influence the relationship dynamic? And 4, what is the role of the other partner who is not providing financially for survival needs, if that's the dynamic that you choose? Okay, jumping right in. So, is 50-50 on all work, bills, and house duties really fair in a partnership? I want to share a little bit of my context. One, I'm thinking about these things because it's fresh on my mind, because I am thinking about this more seriously in terms of a long-term partnership. That's new for me. I spent a lot of my 20s not thinking about this, just thinking like, I don't know if marriage is for everybody, and now I'm actually considering it. So that's part of why this is like up on the surface, and it makes me think about like, okay, what examples do I have in my life of different gender roles or partner roles? In my household growing up, I was very lucky to have 2 super loving Mexican parents. My mom passed away when I was 16. So I didn't get to see it for a long, long time with my level of consciousness. But for the time that I did see it, I noticed that it was it was closer to 50-50, and that both of my parents, for the most part, always worked. There were times where they would be laid off of jobs, or I think my mom was home with me for a little bit when I was like 0 to 2. So I was lucky for that. But I'm pretty sure my sisters, I have 2 sisters, and they didn't really have her as much when they were born. So in terms of labor roles, I'm pretty sure both were contributing to the finances, but my mom was doing a lot in terms of managing the budget and bank accounts, managing the household, managing the cleanliness of the household, like giving us chores to help with that, figuring out what we're going to eat for the week, managing the laundry, managing our school stuff. So in that way, I think it was a little bit uneven, if I'm being honest, which I hear a lot of women who are with men, that's their top complaint, is that something that was meant to be 50-50 tends to go overboard, and now all of a sudden it's them having to do the provider role of going to work every day and doing that, as well as the household duty role. So for me, I don't think that the 50-50 thing always works. I'll say that. The other thing is it really fair? I don't know. I think fairness is such a, it's, I want to say a Lutheran principle. Why am I saying that? Maybe I just mean like a Christian principle. And sometimes we take these Christian principles and we apply them to just overall life, and we have to ask, what are the origins of it? I believe in equity. I think equity isn't always fair in that it's not always equal, especially not 50-50. So I think there's going to be ebbs and flows in a partnership, and there might be times when it's more equitable for, if it's a man and a woman in a relationship, the man to be doing more of the cleaning because the woman is recently pregnant or is sick or something. Or the woman or the man is sick, and so the woman is the one working more. I think that's equitable. And I think you kind of have to adjust, but then creating your normal, your standard for everyday life, that's where it still feels tricky to me. I'm like, okay, that's where I almost want to go right into the next question, because it has to do with this. Like, let's say it's not a man and woman. Let's say it's a woman and woman. How do you then differentiate that? And I've never been in a same gender relationship, so I have no idea. I'm sure there's people who have been or will listen and be like, oh, see, that's that like heterosexual dynamic that believes in gender roles and makes everything complicated. I imagine it's more equitable in that there's an ebb and flow of like labor and tasks. But the next question is there always a masculine and feminine energy in a relationship? And if so, how does that affect the dynamic? So what I've learned about same gender relationships is that typically, yes, I hear that. There is someone who's more embodies of the masculine and feminine, but it's not like a either or thing. I think that often gets lost in the greater dialogue, that someone has to be the one that's masculine pretty much all the time, providing, asserting, strategizing, directing, and then someone else has to be feminine all the time, nurturing, creating space, creativity, flow, healing, that kind of a thing. And I think we all have both energies within us. But then we also have a core driving energy that feels more comfortable, like to lean on. So, and that's the one that I think that we should inhabit in our relationships and partnerships. In everyday life, like I see a lot of my masculine energy come out in my own business. I have to plan, I have to strategize. And I've seen times in my life where it kind of goes over the edge and I'm just so drained and bitter because I don't have spaces to be in my feminine energy of just receptivity and flow and slowness and healing and creativity and all of that. And so I think, to answer my own question, I really do believe that there is both energies, and a well-balanced partnership of two people benefit from that polarity, from someone coming to the relationship in their masculine and someone in their feminine. And in their everyday life, they can inhabit both energies simultaneously. If they work, they can inhabit both. But when it comes to the relationship and how they interact with their partner and how they create a life together and the roles they choose, I think that one should choose roles that more align with the masculine and one should choose roles that align with the feminine. It's the first time I've said that. I feel like that's controversial for some to hear. So this kind of leads me to my next point already. How does having one partner financially providing all survival needs ultimately influence the relationship dynamic? So in my mind, I'm going to stick with a man and woman relationship because that's mostly what I know and what I'm doing right now, so it's more relevant to me. I'm not going to speak on what I don't know. Um, but I'm realizing that I would prefer to be with a man who provides all survival needs. So that's food, shelter, and clothing. Let's get specific here. When it comes to food, to me, that means all groceries and going out to restaurants. For the most part, just that's all food that you would eat to survive. It also means shelter. So everything house related, all bills, light bill, energy bill, everything, as well as the actual mortgage. And then when it comes to clothing, I think that more so means a I think it made more sense in old times for the man to provide the resources for clothing, I guess. But in now times, I think it makes more sense with children involved. This is what, from my perspective and preference. There's children involved, and he has chosen that role of the masculine and provider role, then yeah, that definitely buying their clothes and then for their partner when it's necessary. Like some of the necessary things you need, like socks and underwear and like uniforms for work and stuff like that. But also if you want to treat them. And it's hard for me to say this out loud because I feel like it's kind of, to some they would say, whoa, that's a very conservative view. But I actually think it's becoming more of a progressive view again, or somehow it's moved back to a progressive view because so many women are claiming that they even want this and that they believe they're worth this. But it does beg the question on the flip side. If a man is providing you everything financially, well, one, how does that affect the dynamic? Will he start to think and view it as, I paid for everything, so you need to handle everything house related. So you should be cleaning, you should be cooking, you should be taking care of the kids, and you should be thinking through like what events we're gonna have and like all household duties. Or will he start to think in kind of the back to patriarchal mindset of, I pay for everything, therefore I own you. And then will a woman start to become too dependent on him because she's not making money for herself? So to answer that and kind of wrap up, because wow, these questions are taking a while, I'm going to move to the next question. What is the role of the other partner who is not providing financially for survival needs? So if this is something I desire, then that leaves me with, okay, then what am I contributing to the partnership? One, I want to say, in my dating experience, I have seen the energy shift that happens when a man goes from providing and paying for dates to then me kind of interrupting and saying that, no, I want to pay for this, or no, I want to do this, or even starting to direct. Like, I want to go on this date this time here, or I want to. And a lot of these men, they haven't been like crazy misogynist or like huge jerks, but I still saw the energy shift where they were like, it's like they would almost go more into their femininity to kind of back off from my masculinity, and it always ended up going awry and it just didn't work. And I think part of that does have to do with their ego, but it also was part of my own distrust of men and wanting to control the situation. When it comes to like how I want to date now and how I've been dating, I've allowed way more provision and a man to pay for all the dates and direct the dates and figure them out. And one, it's fun because I just can sit back and enjoy it. And I definitely do feel that he appreciates me, my presence, and also just me, my appreciation. That's enough, which is so wild to me. That a thank you with my face lit up, that a hug, that can feel like compensation for what he's actually paying for. But I have experienced that dynamic in dating. So there's that it's possible that a woman's presence and a woman's partnership and a woman's trust in a man and a woman's love and nurturing of him is so immaculate of a life force energy that of course it's worth all the money, all the dollars. And that's just our chosen currency anyway, you know? If it wasn't that, it would be him going out and trading goats for cows or something. So it's not so much about the money as it is about his efforts for provision that balance out her efforts for nurturing and love. To me, that feels like a healthy, cool, balanced dynamic. But then in 2022, where does that lead me in terms of my role? I would hope that it would lead me in a role to be creative, to take care of myself so well that I can show up as my best self for him, so that he doesn't have to start to feel like he's responsible for making me happy, or like he's responsible on top of working for figuring out what I can do for fun. You know, like I can occupy my own time. I know enough about my hobbies, my likes, my interests, my business that I can do that. And what I would love is ideally if I'm still making money, and then one, that's extra money for us to have in terms of fun and play, which I think is a very feminine energy. So extra money to go out, extra money to add to whatever trips that we go to, extra money for whatever kind of fun we're looking to do. And then also investing. And that could look a lot of different ways. I don't want to get totally into finances in this video, but really planting seeds for the future. I think we do that in the form of actual physical children, but we can also create life in so many other different ways. Like, I feel like there's a saying like this: if you give a woman 1 penny, she multiplies it into 10. But maybe I just made that up. It's something along those lines. And then there's definitely some biblical references about that. But I really do believe it. As women, we're life givers and we're multipliers. So I could see how that would be our gift to give. And then in terms of household management, for me personally, I wouldn't mind doing that as long as there is a goal set in place for us to not have to do that labor long term, because I would want to hire help eventually for cleaning and sometimes cooking, and other times I'd want to cook together or one of us cooks because I don't mind it, but I would love to cook with someone, and also like to know what ingredients we're using and all that. So yeah, that's a vision for a partnership, but also a wealthy family and household that I'm moving towards. Okay, so it takes longer to do this format. So there's that. But I think I stayed more on track, so that's a pro to this. So now back to you. Would love to hear your thoughts and reactions towards what I shared. Got pretty personal of my own beliefs around relationships. Currently, they're probably going to change. I'm sure they will change. But for you to consider, what would you say to these same questions? 1, is 50-50 on all work, bills, and house duties really fair in a partnership? 2, is there always a masculine and feminine energy in a relationship? And if so, how does that affect the dynamic? 3, how does having one partner financially providing all survival needs ultimately influence the relationship dynamic? And 4, what is the role of the other partner who is not providing financially for survival needs? So if one person's paying, then what does the other person do or contribute? Okay, those are my thoughts. And hopefully you can also have some time journaling or talking with a friend or talking with a group with these same questions. See you next time.